let's go. Just a few seconds to welcome everyone to another episode of a Gioco podcast. I am Riccardo Scaringi, and today we have a truly special guest, someone who has fundamentally shaped the modern board game industry. He is the co-founder and president of Stonemaier Games, a company that started with a Kickstarter campaign in 2012 and has grown into one of the most respected publishers in the world, with 8 employees and over 23 million in revenue last year. Stonemaier Games. That proves that passion and quality can build something extraordinary. If you've played Wingspan, there's a good chance you have. You've experienced his company's work. If you've built an empire in the alternate history world of Scythe, like me, or managed a vineyard in Viticulture, explored dragon caves in Wyrmspan, or dove into the ocean's depths with Finspan, you know the quality and care that defines Stonemaier Games. But this man isn't just a publisher, he's a designer, the creative mind behind Scythe, Viticulture, Charterstone, Tapestry, and his 2 latest projects that we're going to talk about. Let's welcome Jamey Stegmaier. Hi, Jamey.
Hello, Ricardo. That was such a nice introduction. I think it can only go downhill from here. So thank you so much.
I have to thank you so much for joining us tonight, today, and it's an honor to have you here.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's what, in the early afternoon here in St. Louis.
Yes.
Later
okay,
for you.
St. Louis, yes.
Yeah.
We have 7 hour. We are 7 hour in forward. It's been an intense year for Stonemaier. Vantage, your last game, launched after 8 years. You released Origin Story. You're in the middle of a lawsuit over tariffs. How are you holding up?
Pretty good. I think if you had asked me maybe 2 months ago, I would have felt a lot more frantic and busy because we had a lot releasing right before Essen Spiel. But I'm feeling good about the past year. And right now I feel really good. We're recording this on December 16th, so we're kind of wrapping up the holiday shopping season right now, and it feels really good. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Vantage took 8 years to create. What inspired you to dedicate so much of your life to a single game?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting way to phrase it because there are certainly many games that inspired Vantage, but specifically what inspired me to keep going on it is that it's kind of a new project. There isn't a game quite like it. There are games that have some slight similarities to it, but Vantage being an entire planet that you can explore, that you can walk around the entire planet, and that you're seeing everything from a first-person perspective. The combination of those things I had not seen in a game before, and so whenever I ran into barriers and doubts, I came back to that idea. I was like, I'm excited to put this out to the world. I think people are going to enjoy it, or some people are going to enjoy it, and I'm having fun making it. And so that's what kept me going.
Let's dive a little deeper into Vantage. How does cooperation work in Vantage? Can players miss content by taking different paths?
Yeah, in Vantage, you crash land on this planet far from anyone else that you're playing with. It plays from 1 to 6 players. And the way the cooperation works in the game is both mechanical and thematic/communicative. The mechanical part is that you can, because you're within radio contact of the other players, you can talk to them. And so you can share information about what you're seeing, the choices that you have. You can share advice. Mechanically, you can share skills with them through this advice. And some of the places where you're placing challenge dice slots in your grid, you can help other players. Like if I'm really good at uplifting people, and if you roll a morale result, I can maybe take that morale die. So to kind of give you a good, to uplift you a little bit after you had a disappointing challenge. So there's a lot of ways I think that even in the real world that we can cooperate with each other without being on the exact same location. And I try to use that aspect in Vantage.
You've said, I read that there will be no expansions for Vantage. Why?
Yeah, there were times during the design process where I considered making it a smaller game and then expanding it with expansions. But the more I built the world and the game and the gameplay, I realized that everything in Vantage is so interconnected that it doesn't work to plug in new stuff. Everything is already woven into this vast web of a world. And so I decided just to I put everything there, every idea that I had that was fun or functional. I just put it all in the core game. So I might explore that mechanical system in the future, but yeah, that's all the Vantage content that there will be.
Let's talk about Origin Story now. Origin Story is
Mhm.
your first co-design in years,
Yeah.
if I remember well. How was working with Pete Wissinger? Wissinger.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't say his last name often out loud. I think it's Wissinger.
Wissinger.
Um, but yeah, Pete's a good friend here in St. Louis, and he got really into trick-taking games a few years ago. And so he got me also really into trick-taking games. And so when I decided I wanted to try to explore the idea of a trick-taking game with a strong sense of progression and engine building, I turned to Pete right away, and I asked Pete if he wanted to get involved with it and co-design it with me, given how well he knows trick-taking games.
Trick-taking isn't a typical Stonemaier territory.
Right.
What drew you to this mechanism?
Well, it was largely that I liked these lighter, shorter trick-taking games that I was playing with Pete. But you're right, those games wouldn't have been a good fit for Stonemaier Games. But our twist, one thing that you find in almost all of our games is this sense of engine building and progression where you're growing stronger, you're much stronger at the end of the game than at the beginning. And I hadn't seen very many, if really any, trick-taking games that did that. And so I thought, why not try a Stonemaier version where we can make a little bit longer of a trick-taking game, but where at the end of the game you feel much more powerful than at the beginning.
Before we before we jump to the Span universe, I want to share
Yeah.
something with our users, with our viewers. Okay, now we are again. Let's talk about the Span universe.
Yeah.
The trilogy is complete, lightest to heaviest. Finspan, Wingspan, Wyrmspan. Is it truly over, or could there be more?
That's a good question. Is there another span game that you want us to make?
Uh, okay, birds, fish, dragons. Uh, mm, well, at the moment, I don't know.
So my 100% honest answer is that we are not working on any new Wingspan games at the moment. It really is intended to be a trilogy of games, like you said, lighter, medium, a little bit heavier in Wyrmspan. We cover a lot of animals, and we have a lot still to cover in potential expansions, especially for Finspan. And we have a few continents left to cover in Wingspan. However, the 100% honest answer is if we are ever able to get the Pokemon Company to work with us on a span game, we really are open to doing that. I think that is maybe the one exception where we would consider returning to Wingspan. I think that would be pretty cool.
Each span game has a different designer. How do you choose collaborators for such an important brand for you?
Well, for each of them, after the first, I went to Elizabeth and I said, Elizabeth, I would love to expand this universe a little bit. Do you want to design the dragon game? Do you want to design the fish game? And are you also on board for us making these? And Elizabeth was supportive for us making them, but did not want to design them. And so we reached out to some other designers. I had worked with Connie on Apiary, and Michael and David had already worked on kind of a fan version of Wingspan, a lighter version. So. Uh, Elizabeth, it started with Elizabeth and then branched out from there to other people.
Hmm. Oh, let's talk about strategic acquisitions for Stonemaier Games.
Yeah.
Tokaido was Stonemaier's first acquisition. How has it influenced your business strategy?
Yeah, it's done some interesting things. So the acquisition happened we started talking about it in early 2024. I think it finalized in like September 2024. It was not something we were actively seeking out. We just heard that FunForge was looking to sell the brand, and we thought it was a good fit for our games. The Tocado games are maybe a little bit lighter than most of the games that we make, but they're pretty close. Most of them play 1 to 5 players. It seemed like a great fit, and we like evergreen games. I think evergreen games are more and more rare these days. So to acquire a brand that had some evergreen games seemed pretty good. The tricky part that came out of it is that it meant that we had a very busy release year for 2025, as you mentioned earlier. And I think that can end up diluting and even overwhelming our most frequent customers. So I'm glad we did it. I love the brand. I'm excited about Namiji to come out in 2026, but I do not think we will be doing this for other brands. I think this has been a good experience to do once and not many, many times.
Okay. Now let's talk about tariffs, the industry impact of tariffs. I've read that Greater Than Games, the ones that made Spirit Island, closed partly due to tariffs. What does this mean for the industry, in your opinion?
Specifically about what, Greater Than Games closing, or about tariffs in general?
In general.
In general, yeah. Well, I think, and I could tie this into Greater Than Games as well. I think what it has done for any company that sells in the U.S., and for example, for Stonemaier Games, 65% of our sales revenue comes from the U.S. It has made our profit margins a lot smaller because we're paying significantly more taxes than we were in the past. And so companies that maybe already had very tight profit margins, it put so much pressure on them that we saw some of them, and perhaps this was related to Greater Than Games, put some of them out of business, unfortunately. So this impact has continued. It has gotten a little bit better than it was at the beginning. I think it's now at 20%, but it has just made an already tight profit margin industry even tighter.
Okay, let's talk about future plans for Stonemaier. What's next?
Yeah.
In 2026.
What's next? Yeah,
And beyond.
we're talking about and beyond. Yeah, we usually plan around 3 years in advance. So
okay,
I have
let's
a pretty
talk about
good feeling.
the next 3 years.
Yeah. In 2026, and I won't go into too many details because I'm doing a big reveal thing in a couple of weeks. But I've already said very clearly that we're doing. We have a Wingspan expansion, a full Wingspan expansion. We recently released some fan-made bird cards for Wingspan. Those are great, but this is also a full new continent for Wingspan. And we also have a Finspan. The first Finspan expansion will be released in 2026 as well. And it's kind of an expansion year because we also have an expansion for Expeditions coming next year. The only new game that we've somewhat announced for next year is the first game in what will probably be a trilogy of games from artist and world builder Andrew Bosley. Andrew's the artist for Everdell. I think that's what he's best known for, and our game Tapestry. Are you familiar with Andrew's work in Everdell or Tapestry? He's the artist for those games.
I don't think so.
He's a great artist in the industry, a great person to work with, and he's building this giant world that we are making the games in this world that he's building. So the first game in that world will be released probably at Essen in 2026.
2026. Okay.
Yeah. And then beyond that, there will be more games in that series, probably 2 more games in that series. I'm working on a couple new games, and it gets a little bit.
Just a little
I have
spoiler.
to be more vague after that. Yeah.
Just a little spoiler.
Just a little spoiler. I'm working on a nature-themed game.
Okay.
And yeah, I would say that's maybe the main spoiler that I can say right now.
Okay,
and I'm also working on one of these games in the Andrew series. Yeah.
Okay. Now, here's the question that I always ask to every game designer and every publisher that join us on this podcast. And maybe you could expand a little bit more on this answer.
Sure.
Any advice for young game designers in Italy, the ones that are beginning now in this industry?
Yeah, the main couple things that I would say that really any designers, I don't know if I can't say that it's Italy specific.
Okay, in general.
But I would say some of the things that that I feel have benefited me as a designer is that I try to play a lot of games, a lot of published games. Um, and I try, even though I mainly design medium weight Euro games, I try to play a pretty wide variety of games because I find that I can learn something from any game, even if it's a war game or a light cooperative party game. I can learn something from all those games that can hopefully make me better as a designer. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is uh, to not get too caught up in ideas. I love thinking about ideas for games and focus a little bit more on execution. Taking at least one of those ideas and actually getting it to the table. So if you're a new designer, and when I was a new designer, I tried to get a prototype to the table to see how it played out, because every game that I've ever designed has played out very differently on the table than how I thought it might play out in my head. So I think that's a really, really important step, and it's a daunting step, but it's a really important one.
On the table, you mean
yeah. Oh, a prototype on the table to play
on the
test.
table, you mean other people to try it, no?
Exactly, exactly. And I also literally mean a table. I know in this day and age, a lot of people are using like Tabletopia for digital playtesting. Okay. That's a great tool to have, but the way I think about it is there's so much that I can learn from being with people at a table who are using actual components, who have to go through the steps to actually set up the game and clean up the game and use the game's interface. I learned so much more that way than doing a digital tabletop playtest.
You mean literally on the table?
I mean literally on the table, yeah.
Okay. I have been following your tariff updates all year. How does it feel to finally have some breathing room with the rates down to 30%?
It feels good. I wish it were down to zero. And I think my biggest fear that remains, and the reason that I unfortunately decided to pursue a lawsuit, which wasn't something that I was excited to do. It felt like a necessity at the time. My fear is that it could change at any time, and that I am fairly powerless, or completely powerless, really, to do anything about that. That the president could, at whim, change the tariff tomorrow if he has a bad day to 150%, and I can't do anything about that. And so that's why I proceeded with this lawsuit to try to reinforce some of the checks and balances that I think are so important in a democratic government.
Yeah, I understand. Jamey, thank you so much for making time for this podcast. I know it's been quite a year for you, and I hope you will come and visit us another time in the future, maybe when in the next 3 years
yes,
other games are made from Stonemaier Games. Have a good evening. Have a good day, not evening. Have a good day. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ricardo. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.